Hello students, welcome to Narayana IAS Academy. I am Yogesh Kottavar and here we are going to discuss few articles from The Hindu and Indian Express as part of our daily news analysis. Now the first article of the day is the Gaza war and the Global South intervention, which has come in the Hindu. Now here the article is talking about Gaza war or the Hamas-Israel conflict and what is the position of Global South which includes China, which includes India, which includes South Africa. This is being discussed in this article. Second article is related to PAC, that is a parliamentary committee named as Public Accounts Committee. So recently SEBI chairperson was summoned or called by this PAC, but SEBI chairperson has skipped this meeting. That's why it is in news. So we need to know what is PAC in detail. Then third article is how Panchayat-level weather forecast will help from the Indian Express. Now here Government of India has introduced a new weather forecasting system which is going to operate at the local level, which is going to provide information at the local level, specifically at the Gram Panchayat level. So all these articles are very important. So let's start with the first article. If you have any question, I suggest you to please ask the question in the comment box. I will be looking at this comment box again and again. I'll visit it. Now, let's start with this first article related to Gaza war. Now, Gaza war is in news since last 1 year. So, is it important? It is important certainly from the international relations, from the world order perspective. So, this topic relates to your mains GS paper 2 section, which includes different bilateral, regional and global groupings. Here we are specifically talking about global south. So, the grouping becomes important. Now, look at this previous year question. The long sustained image of India as a leader of the oppressed and marginalized nations has disappeared on account of its newfound role in the emerging global order. Elaborate. Now here the question is focusing on one part, that India used to project its image as the leader of oppressed and marginalized nations. Somewhere we are talking about global south, that India was projecting its image as the leader of global south. So we must know what is global south also in detail to answer this question. Now what is the context? Recently, a person who was Hamas chief has been killed by Israeli military in the Gaza, and that's why this Gaza war was in news again. Now the point is, the war is going on, but if you look at the position taken by countries from global south, it is very much different. Not every country is taking the same stance related to this conflict. So to understand, we must know what is this conflict all about. Okay, Israel Hamas conflict. Now this conflict belongs to an age-old conflict named as Israel-Palestine conflict. Now if you look at this map, here you see Israel, here you have Egypt, Jordan, Syria, here you will see Lebanon, and here you see Mediterranean Sea. Now earlier this particular region was under the Ottoman Empire, and we saw that here a country was named as Palestine, which was existing over here. But later on, a Jewish country was developed. A new country was set up in the name of Israel. And with time, we have observed that the size of Israel is increasing and size of Palestine is decreasing. Right now, if you look at this particular image, whatever this region is, this particular region which is named as West Bank and this region which is named as Gaza, only these two territories are there with the Palestinian authorities, and remaining part is there with Israel. And the conflict is still going on. Palestinians say that the entire land belongs to Palestinians, and Israel would say that this land belongs to Israelis. That's why the conflict is going on. And this conflict exists since 20th century, the early 20th century. Now later on, when it comes to Palestine, from the Palestine, a special group named as Hamas came into picture in the year 1987. This is a militant group. They said that we are going to fight for this Palestinian territory against Israel. And they clearly said that We don't believe that Israel should exist on this map. Israel is not the right country to stay here. So they want to completely banish Israel from the map. They don't want Israel to stay. They don't want any Jewish person to stay over there. They want Palestinian state altogether. So this is Hamas. I hope you understand. Now I'm saying this conflict is there since early 20th century. After every few years, we see some tensions between Israeli forces and Hamas. This is very normal. Just like India-Pakistan, many times we see escalations. So the tensions are still going on. But the point is, in the year 2023, that is last year, in the month of October to be very specific, suddenly people from Hamas, or the Hamas as an organization, they launched a missile attack against Israel. And that was one of the deadliest missile attack ever seen in the history of Israel-Palestine conflict. So once this attack was launched, Israel considered it as a terrorist attack and Israel retaliated. That is, Israel also launched a war against Hamas at that point of time. So in the month of October, year 2023, this thing started. And since that time, the war is still going on. We are still observing that the war is still in its escalating phase. It is just increasing and increasing. Clear? Now this is Israel-Hamas conflict. Now the point is, we want to know what is the stance of global south with respect to this particular war. Does every country from this global south looks at it as a terrorist attack or a war and everyone is supporting Israel or everyone is supporting the Palestinian authorities or the Hamas? This is what our concern is. Now first of all, those who do not know what is global south, look at this particular map. Here in this map you will observe the countries which are in blue right now. If I draw just one line over here, for example, if I draw this particular line, you will observe some differences between these countries and these countries. These countries I am calling as global north and these countries are global south. What are the differences? First of all, these countries are industrialized. Their economy is at a very good position. They have advanced economies. Their health infrastructure is good. Their educational infrastructure is good. What we can clearly say that these are industrialized nations, right? Or we can also call them, these are developed countries. Now, if you compare this global north with this global south, which includes Latin America, Africa, major part of Asia, etc., then these countries are not that developed. Most of these countries, you will find either they are in the developing phase or they are less developed countries. If you compare, they are not industrialized. Some countries are industrializing. Right now, India is going ahead with Make in India project. China is also industrializing. But we are not that industrialized like this global north. We are not yet developed. If you look at health infrastructure, education infrastructure, all of these things, it is not available here. So if I have to say in simple terms, this global south seems to be suffering from the issue of poverty, the issue of income inequality, the issue of lack of infrastructure. So overall we call it, this entire region is the poor region and this entire region is the developed and rich region, right? So to show this difference, this line, this hypothetical line was drawn. It was named as Brandt line. It was named as Brandt line to show that how the world is very different. Global north is very different from this particular global south. Clear? Now how this terminology came into picture. Now this we call as the terminology of Cold War era. Now if you remember the Cold War, when the World War II ended, then we saw that the world was divided into two different stratas. We can call one led by USA and another led by USSR. You see that was the Cold War wherein these two poles or these two countries were trying to lead the entire world. USA was representing capitalism, whereas USSR was representing socialism. Now those countries who started supporting USA, they came on this side. They were called as first world. Those who were having the economic system of capitalism, they were termed as first world countries. The other one who were being led by USSR, those who were having economic system termed as socialistic economic system, those countries were termed as second world countries. But there were some countries who neither followed US's path nor followed USSR's path. And those countries were the countries which were earlier colonized by these European countries. For example, India was earlier colonized by Britain. Many countries of Africa were colonized by European countries. So all these countries, when they got their independence, they did not follow any particular path. And these countries were termed as third world countries. Third world countries. Now we are talking specifically about these third world countries. These are the countries nothing but representing the global south. Now earlier they were termed as third world. But in the year 1990-91, by that time, USSR completely collapsed. And after that, there was no second world. So there was only first world and third world. So we started changing the terminology. Instead of using the term third world, we started using the term global south. It was felt that this term is very much derogatory and disrespectful. So it is better to use the term called global south to represent this entire group. Clear? So again, I'll show you the map once again. This is the global south. Now Australia, although geographically it is there in the southern part, but it is considered as part of global north. Why? Because it is also industrialized, it is also developed, it is also rich. So that's why we are not considering Australia as part of this global south. Rest, everything is there. Clear? And the conditions are very much similar in this entire global south. Okay? Now, moving ahead. What is the position of global south? First of all, if you look at global north, so in global north, just if you remove Russia, rest all of the countries, maximum countries are directly supporting Israel in this Israel-Hamas conflict. They are standing with Israel. They are even sending their weapons or something. For example, USA is sending many weapons, many aircraft and all to help Israel. So in this war, global north is clearly supporting Israel, and even Israel was even developed as a state. It was developed to showcase the power of Britain or USA or these industrialized countries. It is said that this entire global north tries to dominate on this global south, either through colonization or any other way. Now here if you look at this thing clearly, right now the trend is changing. In the 21st century, there are many countries who are part of global south. They are also becoming relatively more developed. They are also emerging as big economies. So if you take the example of China, take example of India, both of these countries are doing economically really good. If you look at the group called BRICS, this group involves countries of the global south only, although it's a very small group. But if you compare this group with G7, which is a group only which belongs to global north, then economically, specifically in terms of purchasing parity, this BRICS group represents larger economic contribution to the world than this G7 countries. My point is, the global south right now is doing relatively better, and that's why we are questioning what is the role and what is the position of global south on this particular war. Are they supporting Israel or are they supporting Hamas? Clear? Now look at this position. Let's say first the China's approach. What is China saying? Historically, if you see, China supported Palestine and not Israel. Because if you look at the way China, India, South Africa, these countries look at Israel, is through the angle of colonization. That the North or the Britain, USA, these countries, these Western countries have always tried to dominate and colonize these southern countries. And that's why even existence of Israel is an example of colonization. and that's why they don't support it. And here, when you look at China, although they support the Palestinian cause, they support that there should be a country called Palestine, but they are not directly against Israel also, because they need Israel to some extent. So here, when Hamas is attacking Israel in October 2023, when Hamas launched missile attacks on Israel, this country, that is China, did not criticize or condemn this kind of an attack. Whereas if you look at what India did, India said that such a terrorist attack should not be acceptable to any country. So at that point of time, India was standing with Israel, whereas China did not condemn it. Now, if you look at the trend, what is going on, what China is doing, China is trying to position itself as a mediator. China is trying to do one thing, that there are Arab countries like you say Saudi Arabia, Qatar, or Iran, etc., and there is Israel. China is trying to balance its relations, and China is somewhere showing importance to the Arab countries by supporting Palestinian cause. Why? Because China has to make many investments in that region. China has to ensure its energy security. Whatever oil supply or crude oil supply, natural gas supply is coming to China, that is dependent on these countries. So overall, if you look at China's terms, China is relatively focusing on these Arab countries more. Okay. Now, if you look at India, historically, even India supported the Palestinian cause. We also say that Palestine should be a country in itself. They should have some authority over there. But India has come up with a support for two-state solution, wherein we say that both Israel and Palestine should coexist. We support this cause, saying that practically it is the best solution to go ahead with. Now the point is, we say this thing, but on the other hand, we have our interest in the Middle East. So again, if we see this thing, wherein we have Arab countries and we have Israel. So we also need Arab countries because of our energy security needs. We also need crude oil and all. If we go against their cause, they will start providing us oil, or in case they don't provide us crude oil and all, our economy cannot grow. So we are dependent on Arab countries. We are also dependent on Israel. Why? Because since last 1 or 2 decades, we are observing that Israel and India's relations are becoming better. Specifically, we are focusing more on defense, technology, and counter-terrorism. In these angles, Israel is helping India. So that's why when it comes to security of India, we are looking at Israel. So the country becomes very important. So what is India doing right now? We are showing our position as a balancer. We are trying to balance our interests with respect to Arab countries as well as Israel. So we are not taking any particular stand. We are neither supporting this side or that side directly because of these reasons. Clear? Now look at third country from the global south, that is South Africa. What is South Africa doing? South Africa has also seen the kind of colonization which we have seen. There was a law called apartheid law in South Africa. According to that, the South Africa was divided in racial terms. The blacks, who were in majority, were given different treatment, and the whites, who were minority, were given different treatment. And that's why South Africa looks at entire issue from this racial injustice angle. So if you look at this conflict, Hamas versus Israel, South Africa clearly says that Israel is wrong. In this after this particular attack of 2023, in the month of December, South Africa went to International Court of Justice, saying that Israel, who is right now at war with Hamas or at the Gaza, they are conducting operations in a very inhuman manner. They are violating human rights. They are killing people, innocent civilians. And that's why they went to International Court of Justice against Israel. So what does this show? This shows that South Africa's stance is very clearly against Israel. Now, if you look at the moral standing, then morally they are taking a stand with the support for Palestine, which is anyway taken by China or any other global south country. But in practical terms, the stand which is taken by South Africa is not taken by China or India or any other global south country. So overall, the picture that I want you to see is that the global south lacks unity. We don't have any unity among each other. We are not taking one stand which is very clear, which is morally correct for the global south. And when we are divided, then we cannot take the right stand. Now, why this global south, or why are we even discussing about global south? Why the discussion becomes very important? First of all, global south is now very important. First, it has got lots of resources. You look at resources in terms of population. If you look at the population of global south, it includes China and India. That means anyway, it's going to have very high population. This population, if provided with education and health and skills, they can become the engine of growth. They can provide a really good economic growth. So they have got these resources. Apart from that, these countries have got natural resources also, such as let's say rivers, let's say mountains, let's say forests, biodiversity. If you look at the biodiversity part, then you will see that it is maximum there in the global south part. So resources are there with global south. Second, their economic might is increasing. That means they are becoming economically stronger. See, global north was very powerful earlier. It is powerful right now also. But in economic terms, now many countries of global south are emerging. I gave you the example of BRICS. I gave you the example of even China and India, that they are emerging, they are becoming larger economies. So this is important. Next, their political influence is also increasing. You see, nowadays we say that to stop the Russia-Ukraine war, India can become a peace negotiator. When there was a conflict between Iran and Saudi Arabia, China came into picture and tried to negotiate some kind of a peace deal. This shows that countries like China and India are even becoming politically influential in the international affairs. Now, this is something new because earlier this was done only by the global north. Okay. Then we are challenging the global north dominance. How? The world is becoming multipolar. See, earlier only USA was powerful. Let's say after the World War, USA and USSR, these were the two countries who were the most powerful. Every other country was going with either this country or that country. After some time, that is after the disintegration of USSR, there was only one country who was called as the superpower. That was USA. But right now, the world is moving towards multipolarity. Multipolarity means many countries are becoming very powerful, very influential. For example, you have one pole called USA, you have another pole called Russia, then you have another pole called China, another pole called India, then you have another pole called France, etc. So there are different poles. So there is no one single power. And here, global south is capable of challenging the dominance of entire global north. And this is going to have impact on the geopolitics. It is said that the 21st century in which we are right now living, it is Asian century. Why Asian century? Because you see the emerging markets are in the Asian region. And here when we say Asian, global south countries and Asian countries are more or less similar because most of the Asia is part of global south and they are leading. That's why overall we are saying what is the stance of global south? It is going to matter in the international forums. Clear? Now, moving ahead. Even though this group is very significant, very powerful, there are some challenges, there are some concerns related to global south. First of all, these countries are still going ahead with issues like poverty, income inequality, economic inequality, etc. They don't have the basic infrastructure which is required in their country. Although they are emerging countries, but the infrastructure is not there. Then in many countries you will see there is no political stability. You see, political stability is very important. If the government is changing every single day, you look at Bangladesh, you look at Sri Lanka, they are also part of global south. Do you see any kind of political stability? No. So this is a challenge in these countries. When there is political instability, that means the government is continuously changing and all. In that case, you cannot come up with planning which is of long term. You cannot have a really good economic growth. Now, India could be one of the exceptions that we have got some political stability and our economy is growing in a relatively better way as compared to other countries. But when you are looking at entire global south, you cannot just look at India or China. You have to look at entire global south. Clear? Now, another concern is related to climate change. Now, we all know that the entire world is facing the issue of climate change. But see the impact of climate change. The impact is more on global south rather than global north. Maximum people who are getting displaced from their place are living in the global south. So this is a major concern. People are already poor, and when suddenly a cyclone comes or anything happens because of climate change, they become more poor. They become completely extinguished. So this is also a big problem for them. They don't have infrastructure. I already told you, whether it is road infrastructure, railway infrastructure, ports, etc. Nothing is there. When you don't have infrastructure, how would you expect that there will be investment in your country? It will not be there. And if there is no investment, how can you expect that there will be economic growth? So this challenge is there. Apart from that, because there is lack of education, there is lack of skills, and all these infrastructure opportunities are not there also. That's why overall the human capital which should develop, human capital means if there is a normal human being, if you give him education, if you provide him decent health and provide with some skill, then this person will become a human capital. Capital means it will generate you some profit, some income. It will become resourceful, an asset for you. Okay, so this is lacking in these countries of global south. Clear? Now now we know these are the concerns. What are those initiatives wherein we are trying for some cooperation between these global south countries? Because we said the core problem is there is no unity among these countries of global south. If you look at China, India, South Africa, everyone is coming up with actions which suits to their national interest. They are not thinking about entire global south's interest. And that's why, because there is unity among global north, they are able to dominate on the global south. Whereas the global south is not in a position to do that. So here some initiatives which were already taken for this global south cooperation or south-south cooperation. First is this South-South cooperation. This was done under United Nations. We even celebrate one day in the name of South-South Cooperation Day. So what we do over there? Here the countries of Global South, they try to cooperate in the field of trade, technology, knowledge sharing, etc. So that they can build some trust among each other. They can become self-reliant. They'll not be reliant or dependent on global North countries or countries like Western countries. So it's a good initiative. Yes, then you have this initiative called IPSA. It's a grouping of India, Brazil, South Africa. Now these three countries, all three are democracies and all three belong to global south. Their history is also very much similar because they were colonized. And these countries came together saying that we are going to cooperate in the field of agriculture, education, trade, etc. So we will focus on sustainable development. This is how they will do it. Good initiative, we can say, where south countries are cooperating. Then a very major institution or very major forum called BRICS forum. BRICS is a very major one. BRICS also represents global south, and the size of BRICS is increasing again and again. With time we may say that the BRICS might become larger group, and it is showing, even if you look at the countries who are part of BRICS, they are the major economies. Specifically, the name BRICS comes from Brazil, Russia, India, China, South Africa. All these five countries GDP, if you combine, I told you it is more than the GDP combined of G7 countries, who were the rich and advanced countries in PPP terms, right? So these countries represent the future of global economy. The economy of world depends on these countries, and we have taken the initiatives to bring all these countries together. They have different interests, but we brought them together with this particular forum. Okay, and we have another forum even under, or a group under United Nations, termed as G77. Now this group actually represents global south, because these are the 77 countries who are core part of global south, who are developing countries, who are poor countries, and they come up with their interest in the United Nations. So all these initiatives we have taken so that the global south can cooperate. But the harsh reality is they are still not completely united, whereas global north is very much united as compared to global south. Clear? Okay. Let me check any doubts. Venkat Dinesh is saying, sir, what is India's role in establishing peace in this issue? Peace in this issue, as in I'm understanding the question as in the Hamas-Israel conflict. If there is peace between this Hamas and the Israeli group, the entire Middle East will be peaceful. Let's say what will happen if there is no peace, if the issue gets escalated and the war started increasing, Iran gets into the war, many other countries get into this war continues, what will happen? First of all, there will be pressure on India to support Israel, that's another thing. But there will be pressure from the Arab countries also to take a stand with Palestinian cause. Now the problem is, if the issue escalates, we need Arab countries, we need Israel both. Why do we need Arab countries? Because we are dependent on them for our energy security, for our natural oil, sorry, the crude oil or natural gas, etc. If the war escalates, suddenly you may see that the prices of oil increased, because suddenly the supply of oil is not coming to India because of the war. Or so let's say there is a container on which there is a ship on which there is a container where you have put the crude oil. You are bringing that oil from Saudi Arabia to India, for example. But suddenly, because the war is going on, someone attacked this particular ship, and because the oil supply suddenly stopped, the prices in Indian market for the petrol, diesel will suddenly increase. When the prices of oil will increase, you will see the prices of all the products will increase. There will be very high inflation in India. Because of inflation, there can be even political instability. People will not be happy. They will come to road, just like you see in Sri Lanka, or even Pakistan, even Bangladesh. Such scenes can be there when there is such instability. In economic terms, I'm telling you. And we can't go against Israel also, because Israel is right now helping us in our security initiatives. Whenever we are going ahead with counter-terrorism operations, whenever we want some kind of technology, we look at Israel. So from security perspective, when we want to fight against China or Pakistan, we want to secure our country, we see that Israel is helping us. So if there is a peace between Arab and Israelis, that is certainly going to help India. That is very good thing. But if this peace is not there, the issue escalates. That's the worst scenario for India. Clear? Now, as far as role is concerned, India can play a role wherein India can try to negotiate with these countries. Negotiate as in we can provide some support, wherein we have good relations with Arab countries, we have good relations with Israel. We can put everyone on a single table. This is what we can do at max. Okay. Rest remains on the attitude of these countries. Okay. Moving ahead. I hope the doubt is clear. Now, moving ahead with the next question, or the next particular topic. This topic is related to Public Accounts Committee. This PAC means Public Accounts Committee. Now, it's a parliamentary committee, a committee that is set up in our parliament, which is a normal thing. This committee gave a call to the chairperson of SEBI, but the SEBI chairperson did not come to attend that meeting, and that's why it was in news. Clear? For us, this committee is very, very important from exam perspective. In prelims, you can expect that question, or even as part of GS paper 2 mains, Indian constitution and whatever amendments, significant provisions, basic structure, when you study all of this part, parliament becomes important, parliamentary structure becomes important, and even parliamentary committees become important. Clear? Now look at this previous year question. Which one of the following is the largest committee of the parliament? A very factual question. To attempt this, you must know about all of these committees. You must know how many members are there in each committee. Then only you can answer this question. And our focus will be on this. Where is this committee? This committee on public accounts, PAC. Okay. Let's move ahead. So I told you what is the issue, why it is in news. Let's look at Public Accounts Committee specifically. You see, when you look at India, we have parliamentary democracy. We see that in India, we have democracy of a parliamentary form. So whenever there is parliamentary democracy, what do? We have a government whom we call as our executive, who is going to implement all the policies, who is coming up with decisions. Whatever decisions this executive takes, that will be checked. That will be checked by our parliament. This is what parliamentary system is all about. Whatever action executive is taking, whether that action is right or wrong, whether they should do this act or not, everything will be checked or controlled by the parliament. This is the job of our parliament. Now, in the parliament, we make some committees to get ahead or to go ahead with such checks. So one of that part is to make a committee. Now this committee could include some members of the government also, or maybe some members of the ruling party, some members from the opposition party, and all of these members will scrutinize the action taken by the government. Now, as far as Public Accounts Committee is concerned, what is the job of this committee? The job is to check whatever expenditure government makes. Expenditure. So expenditure simply means whatever amount government is spending. Let's say government decided that they are going to spend 1000 crore as part of a particular scheme. They said that this year we spent 1000 crore. They said, but whether they have done it or not, whether they have spent it for the same thing or the money was used for something else, everything will be checked. So whether the amount which was supposed to be taken from the treasury, have they taken only 1000 crore or 2000 crore, everything will be checked. All this could be checked by this Public Accounts Committee. So in simple we can say its job is to scrutinize the accounts and expenditure of the government. They will check whether they have utilized the fund properly or not, they have used it for the right cause or not, everything. So they are acting as a watchdog. They are watching, they are keeping a watch or monitoring what this executive or government is doing. So simply they are ensuring that the executive is accountable. It's not like executive will do whatever they want to. Just because they have access to the funds, they will use it. No. They will have to be answerable. They will have to be accountable. Right? This is core part of our parliamentary democracy. Now it is not like this Public Accounts Committee has come into picture for the first time. Rather, it was part of our system since 1921. So if you remember, if you read modern history, in the year 1919, a Government of India Act was passed, which we call as Montagu-Chelmsford reforms. So these were some constitutional reforms brought in India. As part of this particular reform, it was said that we will bring Public Accounts Committee in our parliamentary system. So for the first time in the year 1921, when we had British Raj, at that time we brought Public Accounts Committee. So it is one of the oldest parliamentary committee in India. Okay. Now this is not just one parliamentary committee that exists in our parliament. There are so many committees. So look at this structure. When we look at parliamentary committees, these are categorically can be divided into two different types. One is a permanent committee, a permanent one which exists for the entire time period. Let's say the Lok Sabha is for these 5 years, then for 5 years it is going to exist. Such permanent committees are called as standing committees. Permanent committees are called as standing committees. On the other hand, there are some committees which are created for a temporary time period. Such committees are called as ad hoc committees or select committees. Simply you can remember ad hoc committees. They are for a temporary time period. So let's say there is an issue. We just want our one committee should take up that issue. Once that issue is resolved, that committee should not exist at all. So this will be done through ad hoc committees. Clear? Now, if you look at standing committee, those permanent committees, there is one type called financial standing committees. These committees take care of all the finances, all the expenditures, everything. Now, Public Accounts Committee is part of this financial committee. Apart from Public Accounts Committee, there is Estimates Committee, there is Public Undertaking Committee, etc. And apart from Financial Standing Committee, we have another committee called Department Related Standing Committees. Now these are those committees which we are calling department related. So in the ministries we have departments. Now these particular departmentally related committees will focus on what a particular ministry is doing, and they will take up all the issues related to that particular ministry, very specialized one. For example, you will have a committee on agriculture. They will just look at issues related to agriculture. They'll check if the government is doing good or not. The government is doing whatever action they had to take in terms of agriculture, whether the ministry is taking those actions or not, they will check. Similarly, committee on defense, committee on energy, etc. And there will be many more such committees. Okay. Then the temporary or ad hoc committees. Now, if you make an ad hoc or temporary committee, and in that committee, if the members are coming from only one house, that is termed as normal select committee. But if members are coming from two different houses, let's say you take some members, let's say 3 members from Lok Sabha and 4 members from Rajya Sabha. I'm just giving you an example. And you make one committee of different members from different houses. Such committee will be called as Joint Parliamentary Committee, which is also a temporary or ad hoc committee. This can also be made when there is a controversial issue or a very important issue which needs to be dealt with. Clear? All these committees are made in Parliament so that government's accountability can be ensured. Clear? Now, look at the membership. Who all are the members, or how many are the members when it comes to Public Accounts Committee specifically? So when it comes to Public Accounts Committee, from Lok Sabha, 15 members will be taken. From Rajya Sabha, 7 members will be taken. So overall 15 plus 7, that is 22. So total number of members who will be part of Public Accounts Committee will be 22, 15 from Lok Sabha, 7 from Rajya Sabha. Please remember this fact. Now each member who is becoming part of this committee, he or she will be part of this committee only for 1 year. After 1 year, either another person will replace, or you will have to get re-elected in this Public Accounts Committee. And here the election will not take place the way election take place at the local level. For example, our general elections which we see, what happens? There are 3 members. You will vote. When you are going for voting, you will vote for only one person. Let's say I voted for the second person. This is how the voting system goes on. We call it first past the post system, wherein whoever has got maximum number of votes will win, right? That is the simple system. But when it comes to Public Accounts Committee and the election of members for this particular committee, we don't follow first past the post system, we follow another mechanism. That mechanism is called as proportional representation by single transferable vote. Don't remember this technical term, just remember what I'm trying to tell you. The election goes on in such a manner that, let's say there is person A, B and C who are standing, and we all have to vote. So I will not be just voting for one person. Rather, I'll be voting in this manner that I give first preference to person B, second preference to person C, and third preference to person A. This is how I'm going to vote. All the people are going to vote in the same manner. And they will be having a quota system that they will say, let's say for example, whoever gets 35 votes will be the winner. Let's say. In that case, whoever's quota is filled, that person will win. And if the quota is not filled, what they will do? Any person out of them who has got the least number of votes, his votes will be removed and added into these two people. So this is called as proportional system, representation system with single transferable vote, wherein your vote is getting transferred from one person to the other, and it is proportional representation. Proportional means it's not like if three political parties are getting into the election, then only one person will win. No, everyone can win. Let's say 40% are vote given to BJP and 25% given to Congress, and the remaining votes are given to some other parties. Then members of BJP will also come to will also win the election, but only 40% of the members. 25% will come from Congress. So proportional representation works in this way. It's not like only one person is going to win from the election, but proportionally representation is given. Okay. Now just remember this term now, proportional representation. Clear? Now moving ahead. The Speaker of the Lok Sabha, he has the responsibility to appoint the chairperson of this Public Accounts Committee. And please understand, the chairperson is always a person from opposition party. He is not a person from ruling party, and this is a convention. Since the year 1967, this convention is continuing, wherein we will make only a person from opposition party the head or the chairperson of Public Accounts Committee. Right? It's a good convention. And any minister, any person who is minister in the government, he or she cannot become part of this Public Accounts Committee. He cannot be a member. You may say, sir, if there is a person who is already a member of Public Accounts Committee, if he gets into the government, suddenly today he got the ministry, he became a minister, then in that case, his membership from this Public Accounts Committee will be removed on the spot. Clear? So this is an important fact. So what this committee does, we already know. Still, they will examine government's expenditure. Yes, they are going to scrutinize, examine. Sometimes this controller and auditor generals, CAG, they come up with some report. They go for audit. They check what government has spent, where exactly what they have done. They spend some amount on chair, they spend some amount on administrative cost, everything. All these data will be audited by CAG. Once they do the audit, they give this report to this Public Accounts Committee. And now this Public Accounts Committee, they may go in the details of this particular report. They'll check everything, and then they will give some recommendations to the Parliament. And finally, Parliament can take any action as they want to. Here, then they can ensure financial propriety. The same meaning is there. Legally or whatever financial decisions government should have taken, have they taken rightly or not, it will be checked. They'll give recommendations, and they can even be responsible for examining any public undertakings whichever is provided to them. Now there are some limitations also. Although this Public Accounts Committee seems to be really good, really powerful, but the problem is they are not playing any role in the policy making, because policy making is the job of government. Whatever they are doing is after that, when the policy is already designed and all. They cannot interfere in that particular policy. And it's a retrospective audit. Means government has already spent the money. Now you're checking what you have done is wrong and all. What is the use? Money is already spent. So that's also a problem. Then whatever they give as a recommendation, it is not binding on the government. Government can say, I don't want to listen to you. So their role is completely advisory. It is not binding on the government. Government may do whatever they want to. And at last, they do not have any executive power. Government has the power. Parliament has the power. So Public Accounts Committee will give recommendations to Parliament. It is up to the Parliament whether they want to take any action against government or not. If they want to take action against government, they can definitely go ahead with that. PAC cannot do that. Clear? So these all are the limitations of Public Accounts Committee. Clear? So, any doubts? No doubts. Okay. Now let's move ahead with the next topic. Now this topic is related to weather forecasting. Right now government is saying that we are going to do this weather forecasting at the Panchayat level. At the Gram Panchayat level, we will provide you weather forecasting information. and this is going to be very helpful, especially for the rural area, especially to the farmers. This is the basic idea. Now this becomes very important for you for prelims as well as mains GS paper 3, wherein e-technology in the aid of farmers, this is important. Even this can be useful for the disaster management also. So this topic is highly important. Now look at this previous year question. Discuss the meaning of color coded weather warnings for cyclone prone areas given by India Meteorological Department, that is IMD. Now this IMD is important. Why? Because even the weather forecasting which is provided to us, that is also provided by IMD, that is India Meteorological Department. So you can see the importance of this particular institution and whatever they do. Okay. Now what is happening, or what is specifically weather forecasting? You understand weather, it's a good weather. Weather forecasting means predicting what will be the weather. For example, tomorrow whether there will be some rain over here or not, whether there will be more humidity or there will be very high or intense heating. All this information, that is predicting atmospheric conditions. What will be the atmospheric conditions in a particular area for a particular time? If we can predict that scientifically, not just by our whims and fancies, that just I think that there will be a rain. No, scientifically if we can predict that it will happen, then that is called weather forecasting. And here we will come up with a lot of data. We will do a research, we'll use satellites and all those sensors and all. Through that we'll come up with some clear cut data. For example, there will be satellite images, temperature readings, humidity levels, wind speed, computer models. All this data will be used to come up with this final prediction related to the weather. Clear? Now this is very interesting. This is done by our scientist. This is very important also. Why? Let's say you are going for trekking at a particular location in a mountainous region, and when you went there, you suddenly got to know that it is raining very heavily and you got into a trouble. So if you could have known earlier that there can be very intense raining in this area, that would have been better, right? So when it comes to weather forecasting, it is going to be very helpful in our day-to-day life as well as for our different sectors also. For example, if you look at agriculture specifically, many a times farmers complain that suddenly there was heavy rain, because of which whatever crops we wanted to harvest, that have got destroyed completely. If we would have earlier known that there would be a rain, we would have already harvested our crops. So if they get some warning, some weather forecasting already, don't you think our agricultural productivity will become better? Will do better agriculture, right? Then we can manage any of the disaster, although disaster is going to happen. But if you are prepared for the disaster, that's a good thing. And you can plan your infrastructure also, depending on how the weather is going to change over here. So all of this becomes important for us. Now, presently, the government has come up with this Gram Panchayat level weather forecasting initiative. Now, this initiative has been brought up by Panchayati Raj Ministry plus India Meteorological Department IMD plus Ministry of Earth Science. So, three different institutions came together to bring this local level weather forecasting initiative. You must know this particular fact. Now, what is this initiative going to offer? First of all, they are going to provide the weather forecast in hourly terms. Means every hour what is going to happen, what kind of weather is going to be there. That information will be provided through your websites or applications or some portal. This information will be provided. Even 5-day forecast will also be provided. So next 5 days how the weather is going to be there. All this going to add these things over here, which is very good. Now you may say, sir, what's new in this? The weather forecasting is already there. What kind of a new thing we are doing? If you look at the previous things, how previously we were forecasting, then we were doing it on a larger area. Let's say entire district, or let's say entire block or taluka. Whenever IMD used to provide information, they used to provide forecasting for the entire district or entire block and not for the only single village. Now you see that there is a difference. In one district, even if IMD has said that in one particular district, let's say for example Hyderabad, they are saying in the Hyderabad today there is going to be heavy rain. But as a district, when you are looking at it, it is possible that there is one village in this district who is going to get the rain. On the other hand, there is another village who is going to have intense heating or drought like condition and no rainfall at all. That is also possible. So even if IMD was providing weather forecasting, that was not very informative or relevant at the local level, because the information was very much broad for the entire larger region. At the local pockets, the situation could be different. So now IMD and all these institutions are saying we are going to provide you information at the village level, at the panchayat level, right? Now this is a very difficult task, please understand. Weather forecasting, if you're doing at larger area, it is very much easy for IMD to do. But when it comes to local things, local level predictions, it is way more complex and difficult for IMD to do this. And there are many technological challenges also which they are currently working on. Okay. Now, what all benefits we are going to get with this particular initiative? First of all, in the agricultural planning, this is going to be very helpful. So whenever in the agriculture, farmers are going for sowing or harvesting, if they already know what kind of climate, what kind of weather is going to be there, that's very helpful, right? Then they can be prepared for the disaster, any kind of disaster through which they can save their crops, they can save their livestock, they can save their own lives also, obviously. Then if you look at climate change angle, the phenomenon of climate change is very interesting, wherein the weather patterns are changing. Earlier in an area, there used to be very intense heat. Nowadays, it is not there. Now, right there we are observing flooding, and there were areas where there used to be only drought-like condition. There, rainfall is increasing, and there are some areas where rainfall was there. There, the rainfall is decreasing. So, weather patterns are completely changing because of climate change. And now, when we are dealing with climate change, such applications or such weather forecasting information platforms are going to be very useful, because we don't know what kind of weather will be there tomorrow. So that will be very helpful to adapt ourselves for this climate change mechanism. And then this is going to strengthen rural governance also. So we say that urban governance in India is relatively better as compared to the rural part. So in rural part, by providing information, you are empowering these people of rural area to take the right decision for themselves. So they can take proactive decisions, which is a very good thing we can say. Okay. So all these three articles we consider as highly important. Any doubts? No? Okay, now it's the time for prelims practice questions and mains practice question. I suggest anyone who is watching the video and after that attempting these questions, please mark it in the comment box. Let's check how much score you can get, even with the two questions. If you have understood the entire issue, you must be in a position to answer these questions. Okay, so the first prelims practice question. Consider the following statements regarding Public Accounts Committee. The chairperson of the Public Accounts Committee is always a member of the ruling party in Lok Sabha. Absolutely wrong statement. This person who is going to be the chairperson will not come from ruling party. Rather, there is a convention we said that a person from opposition party will be the chairperson. Right? So first statement is wrong. Second, the PSC examines the accounts showing the appropriation of funds granted by Parliament. Yes, they do it. No doubt about it. Ministers can be elected as members of the PSC. This statement we know absolutely wrong. Again, we said that if you are a minister, you cannot be part of Public Accounts Committee, right? So only second is the right. So B, 2 only is the right answer. Now, Question number 2. Consider the following statements regarding Gram Panchayat level weather forecasting initiative. The initiative provides hourly weather updates and 5 days forecast at the Gram Panchayat level, covering parameters such as temperature, rainfall, cloud cover, wind speed, humidity, exactly what we have studied already. So this statement is absolutely right. Then, this initiative is a collaboration between Ministry of Agriculture, IMD and Earth Science. Now please look at this, whether this ministry is part of it or not. If I go back, I'll show you the slide even where we had mentioned this specifically. We said it is Ministry, Panchayat Raj Ministry, IMD and Ministry of Earth Science. And there in the option it is saying Ministry of Agriculture. And you can get confused with these ministries. That's why the question has been asked. So please remember, it is Panchayati Raj and not Agriculture Ministry. Okay. So even this second statement, if we look at it, this becomes wrong because of Agriculture Ministry. Third, previously weather forecasts were provided at district or block levels, which were broad and less effective for localized agricultural decision making. Absolutely, sorry, district and block, absolutely right. We were providing it at district and block level. This was not helpful for the village level or panchayat level. So third statement is right, second is wrong, first is right. So 1 and 3, B. B is the right answer. Clear? Now, mains practice question. The rise of Global South has challenged the traditional dominance of Global North in international relations and geopolitics. In light of the Israel-Hamas conflict, analyze how the Global South's fragmented response reflects the complexities of its growing political and economic influence. So the question is specifically focusing on Global South's fragmented response, which we said China is having different response, South Africa different, India different. This is what this question is specifically focusing on. So if you are attempting this question, okay, I see. Yes. In the introduction, talk about Global South specifically. You can talk about the rise of Global South, how it is rising right now. But it is lacking the unity. It is right now fragmented, which can be seen in this Israel-Hamas conflict. This you can show clearly. And in the body part, you talk about this fragmentation very clearly. Show that all these countries, they are taking actions more in their national interest rather than thinking about the interest of Global South. And this you can show with examples of India, China, South Africa, etc. After that, you can show how this fragmentation is taking place. Some countries are focusing on national interests, some are focusing on historical experiences. Historical experience like South Africa, they are focusing more on what they experienced, racial discrimination. So this is how you can show. And then show global influence which comes from this Global South in terms of BRICS, you can say, in terms of other organizations, how economically well they are, how geopolitically they are becoming important. All this you can show in the body part. And in the conclusion, what we can do, we need to focus on bringing this unity. This is what you can conclude, and you can show the reality that is taking place right now through global governance, through diplomacy, etc, etc. Okay, so overall this question becomes relatively easier. So these are the 3 articles we discussed. Okay, so we're done with this. Thank you so much for joining. We'll meet in the next session. Thank you.